The NASCAR Hall of Fame opened back in 2010 and is filled with all sorts of exhibits for fans to enjoy. Whether it's the Pit Crew Challenge, car simulators, or just a trip down memory lane, there's plenty to keep fans occupied. It also includes a unique section featuring a North Dakota native who was honored for his actions off the track. Shawn has his story in this week's Inside Track, which is brought to you by My Place Hotels.
The NASCAR Hall of Fame has a little something for everybody, looking at the evolution of the sport to learning more about your favorite drivers from past and present.
There is an incredible appreciation and reverence for the history of the sport and those who built the sport. One of the biggest challenges is you never have enough space to tell everything, but that's one of your biggest opportunities.
On the fourth floor, the Whelen Hall of Champions has trophies that date back to the founding of NASCAR, along with a listing of title holders in all regional and national circuits. But that's not all.
Whelen Engineering's primary customers are first responders, police, fire, medic, etc. And they develop, as a part of this exhibit, called the Everyday Champion. And their representatives throughout the United States get nominations from their parts of the company of an Everyday Champion.
Back in 2014, the first ever honoree for this section of the Hall of Fame, a Grand Forks native named Jay Farmer, who was serving as a state trooper out in Washington.
I grew up in the West Bleachers coming to races every Friday night, and I moved out to Washington State for 13 years. I have a couple guys at work that'll razz me about, everyday hero, but it's all in good fun. To go into law enforcement and think that law enforcement would cross with racing someday, like that just doesn't happen.
But it did happen, all because he responded to a distress call in 2013.
I was on duty and I was about 10 miles away, and we get a call for a car in a pond that had went off the highway. I was a state trooper, so I was responsible for that area. We swam out there, and by the time we get out there, there's about a foot of the rear window showing. It's going under, and we can hear the person in the car gurgling, and he's underwater. He's starting to yell underwater. He had been unconscious prior to that. And we broke out the window with the asp, and the door popped open, and we swam him to shore. He had a medical problem, medical emergency, and that was that.
But that was just the beginning. Whelen invited Farmer and his wife to Charlotte for the opening of the exhibit, and a special bond formed.
Whelen didn't know at the time that Jay was a race fan. They invited him to come and be a part of the big Whelen banquet ceremony to honor him.
They didn't think that I would know anything about racing, but when I started giving them some of my background and the things that I knew about racing, I think that's what made that friendship even stronger, the connection we had there.
6 years ago, Farmer moved back to his hometown and is now working as a school resource officer for the Grand Forks Police Department. But the relationships from his experience has led to some exciting opportunities at racetracks all over.
They definitely give me the red carpet treatment. When I go to a race, it's pretty good passes. I'm not sitting up in the grandstands. I'm meeting the drivers and crew chiefs and going in the haulers and sitting up on the pit stands. And I'm very spoiled, and I admit that. But if they're going to keep inviting me, I'm going to keep going.
In 2019, Farmer helped create a summer program for middle school students called the Impact Academy, with a goal of helping create leaders and role models in the community. It operates mostly on donations. After shooting a promotional video for Whelen last year, General Manager of Motorsports Pete Tezzi asked how he could give back.
He asked me, hey, Whelen would like to make a donation. Is there a program that you'd want to see that donation go to? And I told him about the Impact Academy, and so sure enough, when I was in Charlotte, they presented me with a big, huge check, and so that's benefiting the Impact Academy and the kids right here in Grand Forks.
Farmer continues to attend races all over the nation and still keeps in touch with many of the same people that honored him nearly a decade ago.
It's definitely the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in law enforcement.
He and his brother Chris come every now and then. when they're coming to the race in Charlotte. I'll get a text or a tweet from him on a pretty regular basis, but he will always be our first wheeling everyday champion. So Jay is literally a part of our family.
It's crazy to think that from doing my job and jumping in a pond to help a guy get back to shore, that all this came about. I always tell people, like, I'm not a hero. Anybody would have done the same thing. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
You can learn more about some of the other Everyday Champion honorees at wheelin.com/champions. As for Farmer, he's set to be promoted to detective with the Grand Forks PD in October.